perspective piece. This is a internet download that somebody has made of 2 points. So 2 points, there's 1 point perspective where everything goes in the middle. There's 2 point perspective, which is closer to how things actually are. And then ultimately things are 3 point perspective. So you would have another vanishing point down here below off the page. And then there would be lines coming this way, or there would be another one up top. So that's 3 point perspective. But we'll just do 2 point for this project. So what I've got happening here is here's my layer. I've created another layer up here. I'll show you this other one later, but this is the one I'm going to work on. I've got a blue line. You could use any line you wanted to. And then here's my line, and this one's set up at 5 pixels, right? There's my lines. And the size of this file is the kind of the way that I brought it in off of a screenshot, so that when I tried to download it, it downloaded not as a piece of art that Photoshop couldn't see, it couldn't recognize it. So what I did then is I did a screenshot of it, which is what, my Command-Shift-4. Is that my screenshot? Right. So then I took a screenshot of it, which was much bigger, and then that's what I'm using here is a screenshot. So you can see the size of that original piece is this big. So now I'm going to slowly start working on creating 2-point perspective using this grid in the background. And so the way I'm going to use it, basically, I have again my line tool, and I'm just going to start somewhere, and I'm going to hold my shift key down because I don't want to come over. I can on this line, I want it to be totally vertical. So there's my line. So that's one edge. It could be a whole variety of different edges. It could be the back or the front. Let's make it a front. So I've got the back of the front here, and this line I'm going to follow on the pattern that's already there, and I'm going to let go, and then this one will bring it up to this line. I'm holding my shift key again down, and so now I have one side of the plane, and then I'm coming down here, and I'm going to grab this. I could go as far as I want. These are all arbitrary because I'm making up things. And when I bring this line up, I can already see that it's going to stop because everything's going to go to 1 point or another, period. So there's one of my planes, right? It looks like if it's just sitting there. So this is a box that's done in proper perspective. Now, what I'm going to just keep doing is I'm going to just keep adding on to things here. And I'm not sure what I'm doing yet, so I'm just going to kind of play around. The main thing is I'm holding my shift key down, and I need to have all of my straight lines to be vertical. And you can see I'm just laying all of my lines on top of what's already existing. Oops, what's happening here? Oh, so that one's not correct. So I'm going to come out here to here, draw this one down, and then this one will go this way. Right, 2 points, everything, boom, 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 boom. So over time, then I'm just going to keep playing around here. If I need to zoom in, I will on things. And a lot of this is just exploring and trying things out. So not being attached at this time to what things are going to look like. Oops. So you can see that I'm just making and I can see that this line actually did this line wrong. have my two layers. I combined my layers, so it kind of looks like this. That looks good enough for what I'm going to now play around with. Is that I'm going to create another layer, and I'm going to fill it. I'm going to select it all, and then I'm going to come under fill with the foreground color. I'm going to, I've selected a brown, tan, orange, and then I'm going to hit darken so I can see through it. And then I'm going to cut, I'm going to deselect, and I'm going to start looking at, here, let me do it this way. I'm going to pick a side. So this side, this side, this side, I'm going to start picking sides here, and everything basically to the left, I'm going to start cutting it out and see where that takes me. Got my selection tool. All I need to do is hit 4. And I'll just go through this whole piece like this. Playing around, fooling around with this piece. Next level is what I did was I isolated. Here, let's see if I can do it again. So here is where I cut out shapes, right? So what I did is I selected this area. Oops, let's do it here. Here I'm going to select. It's a little complicated, and in Photoshop you can kind of do same thing 15 different ways. This is just the way I kind of hack through stuff, because I created a solid thing and then I cut out planes, and now I actually want to get these all planes together. So by selecting out here in my orange, and then I'm going to inverse my selection, which is Command Shift and I. It then just gives me my inner shapes that are actually empty. And what I would do then is I'm going to create an extra, let's see, I'll do this in a way where you can see it. I'm creating another layer. It's still selected, and then I'm going to go up under fill. And this is an example of where I'm showing it. Now I'm filling all of those spaces in. So this is basically all the planes that are on the right. Now I'm going to do the same thing with all the planes that are on the left. So I click on my space. There you can see the ones that are on the left. And I'm going to create a layer. I'm going to fill this layer. I'm just going to do it with the same thing. I'm going to fill it with a black. So now it's filled. Oops, so I forgot to invert it. Command Shift I inverts it. Then I'm going to fill, and that basically will get me more solid blocks. So I basically did that because I wanted to separate all the blocks from the background. And so I did that already here with this pink. It looks like that. And then I'm playing around with my different opacities. So at the moment I've got it set to darken. So now I'm still playing around with a bottom. I've separated, and I have a working on making a difference between what's above the horizon and what's below the horizon. And then I've lit up in the highest value of what I'm working with when I look down on top of a shape. Then underneath it, when I look up underneath it, it's the darkest. So I'm actually playing around with 4 values. It's a little tricky to see right now because I have some other stuff going on. Let's see how I can see it the best. Because I made this, which makes it confusing. So, and made that. there you can see it a little bit better. That's the best way to see it, right? Values. 1, this we would call this the lightest. It's not quite the lightest, but 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the main thing we're going to. 1, 2, 3, 4. So then what I also did is I imported, I want to play around with some skies or something else to do. So I went to my Google search and I searched in universe photos. And then remember, what you want to do is you always want to hit your tools, and you always want to hit large, because that's what you want. You always want to work with the largest size of image, and it resorts it. So you could pick anything here. You don't have to do this. This is an example of what I was doing. So I grabbed this one right here, and I grabbed it in it, and all I did then was actually drag and drop it right onto the piece. I could drop it onto my desktop, but I can also just drag. Oops, it's not going to let me do it. I can also just drag and drop it into my piece, right? And you can see here what layer it popped it here on this layer, and you can see the size of it. If I want to make it bigger, I'm going to do my Command T, and I'm going to stretch it out, or I could hold down my Shift and make it so it's not in proportions. Actually, that's kind of cool too. And then I'm going to set it. So I already did that with here, and I put it down here. Actually, I'm liking this a little bit more. So I'm going to put that down here, and then start playing around with what I have. I invert stuff. You know, all of this is an experiment in what's happening on the computer and seeing if you can get something that is of interest. So I just go through all of these and see what works, what's of interest. I noticed that here's my bottom layer, which is, it's hidden because these layers are, if I make this down, no. So these are all more solid, and so I'm going to bring layer 2 all up to the top, and then layer 2 is my Linework. So that instantly kind of, it gives it this cool, trippy, interesting, oh, that's kind of cool. It makes it burning up here some more. That's really great right there. So the question is, how do I get that? How could I get that down here? So if I just curious, if I would cut this, what do I get? Cool. So I could keep working around on that, which I think I will. Earlier, I was selecting some of my shapes, and I was using my selection tool, and I would go through a set and have it set, and then I want to add on to it. So I'm going to hold down my Shift key. See how it gives me a plus? Hold down my Shift key and then click on and let go my next shape. Click on my Shift, which is the positive, and then click on here and keep going. So if I don't do that and I come over here, it's going to take away all my selections. And I go, oh man, I don't want to do that. So I could do my exit, and then it brings them back up again. And I can do my Shift, and then I'm going to keep adding on to this set of selections. And then if I want to, then I'm just going to hit delete, see what happens. Boom. So that's cool. It starts giving me actually some trippy, it really looks dimensional here. I kind of like that. So, you know, always save. And so this is just an example then of a 2-point perspective piece. Thinking about, I put a little bit of dark up here, cleaned up some of the lines that I didn't care about. The blue doesn't need to be there as bold. Take it down a little bit. I like that it's there, but it doesn't need to be. So I'm always inverting Command I. I just invert things all the time, just to see. I'm just curious because things will happen where it's a surprise, and so I'm trying to get the computer to constantly surprise me with stuff. I see a line here that could be cleaned up. Not worried about it at the moment. Okay, so I'm going to put a little bit of gradation behind this space. So I'm going to take my selection tool and make sure that I have all of it. I'm going to select right to that horizon line. And then I'm going to do a gradation. And I'm going to do a gradation. Let's see what color, what I'm going to take. Sometimes it doesn't matter what color because I can keep tweaking it. Just need to get mostly enough contrast. So here on this setting, I could either go right now, it could go pink to white, right? Pink to white. If I set this to black, it would go from pink to black. So you have foreground, background color. I actually wanted to go pink to clear. So then I start here. I'm going to hold down my shift key so I get a smooth gradation. If I can do all these in different angles, right? But I have a tendency to like them, because this is so geometric, I want it to be smooth. And then see how it cuts through my shape? So I could bring it down behind my shapes, but it's still cutting through because this layer here is vivid light. It's not solid. That means it's letting stuff come through it. So I don't want that to be there. Let's see what it looks like. That's interesting. Oh, look, I did it where I messed it up and I put it on the layers of my line work. So don't want that. I'm going to keep reversing it. I could also go back to my histories. If I mess up like that, right, I would go into histories and be able to go back to it. Back, back, back. So there we go. So I want to go back to that. So I'm going to actually, now I'm going to create another layer. And I didn't like that pink, but I don't quite know what to do at the moment. Let's just try that. Back to my gradation. It goes pink to clear. I'm hold my shift key down. So there I've got something happening. I can pull it down behind here, but you can see it's still showing through. So what do? I'm going to come back to this layer, select outside in my negative space, which is going to select everything. I look at it. I'm going to invert it, Command Shift in I. So then it goes inside of that. I go back to this layer and then I'm going to delete that. So now it's just everything that's behind here. Still not really thrilled with that color. I can do Command U and get my hue of saturation, and then I could change it this way to see if there's anything here. Oh, there's something there about that orange. Remember, blue recedes, so blue's gonna go back. Blue's gonna go. See how it goes back there, which is fine, but I don't want it. So I've even closed my eyes a little bit, squinting, and then I'm gonna scroll through this and see if there's any colors that work for me. That's okay for the moment. It gives something back there. If I hit my F key, it's going to get rid of everything. So my F key twice. Gets rid of, so I can just see my piece of art. Not really liking the green at the moment, but so that's when I would kind of come back in here and see what else I could tweak around if there's anything worth tweaking. It looks like I've lost my, let's go back and make this a little bit brighter. I want this to be my brightest. I've kind of lost a little bit of what's really happening, but I like the piece, so I can keep. It's really about tweaking things, so you can see the process, and you get it to a point where it stops, and you like it. Curious, so I'm going to play around here with one more thing. I'm going to grab my styles and just play, curious what would that look like if I style some of these. Some of them are too crazy, and some of them are just cool. So here I can drop this layer, hit my V key and drop it down so that it's, automatically it's going to do 100%. But if I come down here, that's kind of cool because it unifies everything. So these are just things always just to learn about. Interesting, very computerized. White to blacks, black to whites. You can just see it's so easy to get lost in some of these pieces. And so that's where I'm at. I'm going to stop here.